You know, we often think about what makes a good life. Is it a great job, a good education? But what if the most important thing is just having a safe place to call home? Well, back in 1965, the US government started thinking the exact same thing. They decided this wasn't just a nice thought, it was a national priority. So let's get into it.
So who's in charge of making sure housing is fair for everyone? It's a huge question. And for a long time in American history, the answer was, well, pretty much nobody. It was kind of the Wild West, you know? Landlords, sellers, lenders, they all made up their own rules. But that all started to change back in the 60s. The country basically decided, hey, we need a referee in this game.
And that answer arrived in 1965. Congress created a whole new government department, one designed from scratch to do just one thing: tackle this exact problem. Yeah, in 1965, Congress made a really formal move. They didn't just create another committee, they created a whole new cabinet-level department. Think about that. That puts housing on the same level of importance as things like commerce or national defense. It was a huge statement.
And that department is the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or as pretty much everyone calls it, HUD. Right from the get-go, its mission was massive. We're not just talking about helping people build houses. We're talking about building up entire communities and making sure everybody, and I mean everybody, got a fair shot.
Okay, so we know what HUD is, but what was its actual mission? What was the big plan? It wasn't just about shuffling papers. The idea was for HUD to be like the master architect for creating better communities all across the country. Let's break down that blueprint. So really, what is HUD's job? Well, it's complicated. It touches on so many things, from the whole US economy all the way down to how a single family lives. So let's unpack its main responsibilities.
And wow, the scope is just huge. First off, they're supposed to make sure there's enough affordable rental housing out there for people. Then they're tasked with keeping the whole US housing market stable. No small feat. But it's not just about the money. It's about improving people's quality of life and, this is the big one, enforcing fair housing laws.
You know, that last point about enforcing the law, that leads us right into what is arguably one of HUD's most important jobs, the fight for fair housing.
So if you had to pick just one thing, what's the most critical job HUD has? The one thing that really, truly changed what it means to find a home in America? It's this right here, enforcing the Fair Housing Act. This is the absolute core of HUD's civil rights mission. It was a total game changer for millions and millions of people who were just trying to find a place to live.
So what is the Fair Housing Act? Well, it was passed in 1968, a really historic piece of legislation. And what it did was make it flat out illegal to discriminate against people in pretty much any part of the housing process. We're talking renting, buying, even getting a mortgage.
So who exactly is protected by this law? Well, discrimination is prohibited based on a whole list of things: race, color, religion, where you're from, your sex, whether or not you have a family with kids, or if you have a disability. Basically, it says you can't be denied a home for these reasons, period. And you know, these laws don't just stay stuck in time, they evolve. A really important example of this is HUD's Equal Access Rule. It clarifies that when the law says you can't discriminate based on sex, that also includes your sexual orientation or gender identity. It's all about making sure these programs are truly open to everyone.
Okay, so it's clear HUD built the foundation for a much fairer housing system in the US, but is the job finished? Let's look at what the department's goal still is today.
And really, it all boils down to this. This is the mission statement that still drives everything HUD does. It's so simple but so powerful, to make sure everyone has access to fair and equal housing. That's the whole point.
And look, this isn't just some nice-sounding idea on a piece of paper. The law has real teeth. For instance, if you think you've been discriminated against when trying to get housing, you have exactly 1 year to file a complaint with HUD. That's how this promise actually gets enforced. So let's just recap HUD's story real quick. Step 1, it was created back in '65 to deal with the country's housing problems. Step 2, it develops all these policies to help communities and markets. And Step 3, and this is huge, it enforces the Fair Housing Act to fight discrimination. Pretty simple when you break it down like that, right?
And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. If the goal is fair and equal housing for everyone, how do we know when we've actually gotten there? What does that finish line even look like? It's a really tough question, and it's why the work HUD does is just as important today as it was all those years ago.